Hey my dudes, my name is Cecilia and welcome to Bageriet Lördag, the Saturday bakery. If you're new here, Bageriet Lördag is my bakery that I run from my teeny tiny apartment right here in Stockholm, Sweden. I sell pastry boxes, which people pre-buy on Tuesdays and then they come and they pick them up from me on Saturdays. Each box has 4 different baked goods in them and the menu changes every single week. I've done summery boxes, I've done boxes with more of like a fall, autumn type of vibe, I've done an all cinnamon bun box for cinnamon bun day, but each box usually contains a mini cake, a Swedish style bun, some type of cookie, and then something random like brownies or gifflar, which are like Swedish style crescent buns. This week, I finally have a new oven. So like 2 weeks ago in the middle of a Bageriet Lördag prep week, my oven just like broke. We had to go to a restaurant here in the neighborhood. We used their oven. It actually ended up being like a really good bake that week, but I was just like, I can't work without an oven. But we finally have a new one, thank goodness. So everything is back to normal. Though the last time I said things were so normal and chill as to almost be boring, that was the week that my oven broke. So maybe I shouldn't be saying anything. Let's just jump right into it and see how this week turns out. Wednesday is prep day. Well, every day is kind of prep day in that I prep for Saturday's bake every single day, but Wednesdays are specifically for setting myself up for success for the rest of the week. I like to scale out all my ingredients so that all the other days I can just focus on making and baking. These 3 hours make me so much faster the rest of the week. The first things I scaled were for the mini cakes, both the stuff for the Swiss meringue buttercream as well as the dries for the cakes themselves. This week's cake is chocolate, so a lot of cocoa powder went in with the sugar. Next up was the ingredients for pumpkin snickerdoodles. I test baked these yesterday and they turned out so good. I'm so excited for them. After the cookies, I scaled out for brownies. It's a chocolate heavy menu this week for sure. And because the mini cakes are made with cocoa, I decided that the brownies should be made with dark chocolate instead of cocoa powder. I'm just trying to add a little bit of variety here. I also scaled out all the ingredients for the caramel part of the caramel coconut topping that's going to go on top of the brownies. This is actually the same base that I use in all my nut bars, but instead of nuts, I'm going to be using shredded coconut. Last but not least, I scaled out all the ingredients for the buns. This week's flavor is pear and almond, and I'm making the same cardamom bun I always do, but this time with a little bit less cardamom, just 10 grams per batch instead of the normal 23. The filling will be made with almond paste and butter, so I only scaled out the butter today since the almond paste comes exactly the weight I need. So convenient. It's almost as if I created the recipe around the package size. I wanted to get ahead a bit, so I decided to do the pear filling for the buns today as well. All the pears were peeled and then diced. I was going to do a fine dice, but it ended up a bit on the uneven medium side. I strained the acidulated water from the pears and dumped them in a pot and added 20% sugar, which in this case was about 500 grams. I put the heat on and gave the pears a quick stir and then set them to the side. Then it was time to fold boxes. While I was doing that, I was listening to my audiobook. This week I've started book 6 of Wheel of Time, The Lord of Chaos. Sometimes I wonder how many books I would manage to listen to if I didn't listen exclusively to Wheel of Time. Once boxes were done, so were the pears. They were really juicy and not at all mushy like applesauce, so I strained off the excess liquid. The pears will go in the buns, and then I added more sugar to the liquid and boiled it down, and that will be a syrup that I brush on the buns after they bake. Thursday is for buns, so of course that's the first thing I got started with. I poured all the ingredients all at once into my mixer, got it started, and shoved it to the side. The dough takes quite a while to mix, about 30 minutes altogether. So while that was working, I sprayed and lined trays for brownies. The butter and chocolate went over a pot of simmering water to melt, and I cracked all my eggs into a large bowl. I added the sugar and began mixing. The bowl was too small, however, so I had to pour the whipped eggs into my largest pot. I should have guessed that there would be way too much batter, but I always have so much hope that I won't actually need the big pot, but I always do. Anyways, I mixed in the melted chocolate and butter as well as the flour, and the batter was looking good. Then the first dough was done, so I took it out of the machine, placed it in the fridge to rest, and got the second batch started. Once that was mixing, I poured 1 kilo of brownie batter into each tray and then popped the first 2 into the oven. While those were baking, I mixed together the almond filling for the buns. I've never made this in a food processor before, and it worked so well. I used to make this kind of filling a long time ago at the first bakery I worked at here in Sweden, but we always just used one of the really big stand mixers, but the food processor was so great. It was so easy. The first round of brownies came out of the oven and I threw round 2 in. Then I quickly threw together the caramely sauce for the coconut topping. Everything just comes to a boil, and once the bubbles start to thicken, it's good to go. I poured it over the coconut and mixed it together. The brownies came out of the oven, the caramel coconut mixture got put on the speed rack to cool, and the second batch of dough was ready, so I put it on a tray and put it into the fridge. I threw the last batch of dough in the mixer, got that started, and it was time to shape the first round of buns. buns. I love a fruit bun, I really do, which is why I keep putting them on the menu, but oh my god, they are just so messy. Like, you can't get around it. The fruit is just really juicy, and when cut into strips and twisted, it just makes a big ol' mess. That's fine though, I still love them. The first round of shaped buns was put away in the freezer. Round 3 of dough got put away to rest, and it was time for more bun shaping. The dough got rolled into a large rectangle. The almond filling was slapped on and spread out. I sprinkled on the pears and then folded the whole thing in 3 before re-rolling a bit, cutting into strips, and twisting into these little spirals that I'm obsessed with. I put those away into the freezer, and the last thing I did was put away the coconut topping and the brownies. Friday is mini cake day, but before I could get started with those, I needed to bake off the coconut topping on the brownies. I wanted to bake them today after the brownies had been in the fridge overnight so that they would go into the oven cold. I didn't want to over bake the brownies as I was baking the topping, so I was doing what I could to set both the brownies and the topping up for success. I portioned 650 grams of coconut business over each tray, spread it out evenly, pressed it down, and then dimpled it. The dimpling was to help with browning. While the first round was in the oven, I could finally get started with mini cakes. I trayed all my molds onto the oven trays and then brushed each one with cocoa pan release. This is a mixture of equal parts oil, butter, and cocoa, and it works so well. My cakes never ever stick. The first round of coconut brownies came out of the oven, the second round went in, and I got started on the chocolate cake batter. All the wet ingredients plus the sugar and cocoa went into my big pot and were mixed together, and then I added the dries and mixed those in. I filled each mold with 110 grams of batter, and once all the molds were filled, I started baking them off. And oh my god, you guys, this oven! So my last oven, each tray of 12 took 25 minutes. Like 20-minute bake, flip the tray, 5 more minutes, done. No fan. The fan produced like really uneven results, so I never ever used it. But this oven, oh my god, the fan is such a game changer. This oven likes to run really cold, so like it was set to 210 fan, but it was actually running at 180, but it baked 2 trays of cakes, that's 24 molds, in 20 minutes. 20 minutes. That is crazy fast. The amount of time I'm going to save here is just insane. It's so exciting. Like, I might be able to take on more orders without working more just because my oven bakes faster. It's just so great. And like, I did not choose this oven. I sublet this apartment in Swedish, jag hyr andra hand. It's not really subletting, but the Swedish rental market system is weird. Anyways, I did not choose or buy this oven. My landlord did, as it's like their responsibility. So they just bought the new version of the oven I previously had, and it had to be a very specific size. It was a whole thing, but oh my god, this is just so great, and I'm so happy. I was also working on the pumpkin snickerdoodles while the cakes were baking. The butter gets browned and then mixed with sugar to cool, and the pumpkin puree is cooked off with the spices, both to bloom the spices, but also to rid the pumpkin of excess water. I love this technique because I don't have to worry about how watery my homemade pumpkin puree is. It just always works perfectly. Once those were done, the last thing I had to do was peanut butter Swiss meringue buttercream for the chocolate cakes, and you guys, this may be one of the best things I have ever made in my entire life, and I genuinely do not say that lightly. Once the 2 rounds of that were made and put away, all I had to do was wrap the chocolate cakes in plastic so they don't dry out overnight. Saturday was such a good day. Everything flowed so well. There was no hiccups or problems and plenty of time for everything. I know that drama is like so much more entertaining, but I don't care. I love days like today. Drama is a bad sign when you're working with food. I don't want there to be drama or problems. My life's work is trying to eradicate any and all problems from my workflow. As an old sous chef once said to me, if you don't mess anything up, nothing will ever be messed up. So just don't mess anything up. Except he didn't say mess, obviously. Okay, anyway, just had to get that off my chest, but buns were looking fabulous today. And this whole 2 trays in the oven at the same time thing is just so great. Like 2 trays of buns, 2 trays were baked in 10 minutes. 10 minutes! Last week with our old oven, I knew something was wrong because 1 tray of buns was baking in 15 minutes. That's a huge difference. And the snickerdoodles were also baking up so well. It was a lot of trays since I could only bake 12 cookies per tray and we were doing 2 cookies per box. But 2 trays in the oven also took about 19 minutes to bake, so it still took me less than an hour and a half to bake off all the cookies. Once all the baking was done, I cut the brownies into squares. They popped right out of the pans and sliced up so clean and easy. It was so nice. Then I got started with the mini cakes. I took the plastic off all the trays and scooped the re-whipped peanut butter buttercream into a piping bag fitted with a large star tip. Then I just piped a large dollop onto each and every cake. I took a hot spoon and pressed a deep divot into each dollop and then filled it with TUTTIFRUTTI jam, which by the way is just a quick jam I made with all the leftover like fruit scraps I had. I had like, a handful of chopped maraschino cherries, a wrinkled apple, a couple tablespoons of frozen blueberries left over from another project. Mathilda Mathilda is back from vacation and we are back to being incredibly efficient at packing boxes. Look how cute everything looks in the box. We filled the wagon and headed outside. Oh, and the elevator works again. Just good news on top of good news. Axel set up the table and customers started arriving. And that's it for this week. Here's a recap of everything we made. Chocolate mini cakes with peanut butter Swiss meringue buttercream and tutti frutti jam. Pumpkin spice snickerdoodles. Coconut caramel brownies. And last but certainly not least, pear and almond buns. I will be posting the recipes for both the chocolate mini cakes and the pear and almond buns this coming week. Editor Cecilia here. I will also be posting the recipe for the pumpkin spice snickerdoodles. I just forgot to mention that. Usually by the time the YouTube video comes out, I have the recipes on Substack ready to go, but because there's 2 this week, I'm going to be slightly delayed. If you find yourself in Stockholm, either visiting or living here, and you would like to buy a pastry box for yourself, then follow at Bageriet Lördag on Instagram. If you want more short form, behind the scenes style vlogs, then you can follow at Cecilia.Talone on either Instagram or TikTok. And for long form vlogs just like this one, as well as recipe tutorials, you can hit that subscribe button down below. I hope that you have a great week and that I'll see you again next week. Hej då!